Welcome you all to the session. You are watching the How to Excel in Non-Coding Career While in Tech, or how do you still be on top of the technology, on top of all the cutting edge technology you see in the world. You have different streams. How do you be on top of all this technology and in spite of not being a coder or it may not be your forte. So let's see how to excel in. So this is going to be a very useful session if you're somebody who are in the cusp of choosing a career. What do I want to do? What are the options that is laying in front of me? It's going to be useful for you, and also for people already coders or programmers and wondering what options are there in the market. How do I keep myself interesting? Is there different technologies that I can move into, or different roles that I want to move into? So we have amazing panelists with me, leaders in the industry, women leaders in the industry who have donned all these different roles, um, um, not the conventional coding part, but different roles that could be product managers or delivery implementation engineers, pre-sales, marketing, solution architects. We have a lot of skills that these industry leaders are carrying with us today, and we'll hear them talk more as we get into the discussion. With that, I welcome Renu Rajani. Renu has been is a senior IT industry leader. She's also heading the Women Who Code chapter in Hyderabad. And she has done all these roles of being a delivery head, a COO, sector lead, managing teams across the geography, having a breadth of knowledge across different fields. She has also authored a book on software testing and has authored multiple white papers in the industry. Welcome, Renu. Then we have Sonali Kalyanikar. She's the director of sales with VMware. And looking at her profile, we see she has taken up the role of being client-facing roles. We see her moving up the ladder on client-facing roles, multiple hats based on technology, still going up the sales career ladder. A woman in sales, I would call it as that. Welcome, Sonali. And we have Kinnari the way. Kinnari is the head of product and innovation at Shemaroo Entertainment. She loves to build businesses, and she helps to drive them with a vision, give them roadmaps, help them acquire the right technology, brings group of people together, bring different teams across the globe together to build businesses. To name few, she has been a head behind Hangama, Embarrassing, IndusOS, Wobok, and currently she's hooked on to the metaverse world. We are excited to see what's coming up next, Kinnari. Welcome. And we have Ameeta Roy with us. Ameeta is a senior director at Redhat India, and she's heading a group of solution architects in South Asia from Redhat, helping the enterprises understand or advocate for open source technologies. And if you look at her career path as well, we see her don all these kind of roles that you see, right from implementation, pre-sales, sales, now into solution architect. Everywhere we can see Amita has played a role. So I'm very excited to have all of you as panelists, and this session is going to be very interesting to hear from you all. Once again, welcome all the panelists and welcome all the viewers. Let's get into the discussion. So, the first prominent thing that comes to my mind when I look through all your profiles is, how did you choose your career? Is it something that you always wanted to do? Did you choose your career, or did the career choose you? How did it all fell in place? Let's start with Kinnari.
Hi Chitra, thanks for the introduction. Yeah, so quickly I would say when I entered the IT industry as such, there is no definition of product managers. So we've been here when even that designation or profile never existed. So I started with a solutioning role for telcos. So we used to do data layers for telcos, and from there, when the app ecosystem developed, we said, okay, we'll build that solution as well. And because I had inclinations towards design, towards consumers. There is where I started moving into a profile, which then emerged into now what you call as a product management profile. So I think for me, it's largely been how the industry and progressed and how I have, kind of, picked it basis on my interest as such. Thank you.
Nice. And you've also been. How did you choose between the startups that you want to work? Is it like the technology that you choose behind, or what drives you into those
So
technologies?
largely, when I look at the startups that I worked with or the companies I worked with, it's largely been about what problem are they solving for the consumer rather than saying whether the tech is interesting or etc. So for me, it's largely what problem you're solving, and I would evaluate which team or founder is working. So it's more important that you go along with people with whom you can resonate rather than you say that I want to do this and I want to do that. So it's being largely what my heart and mind has called into, rather than saying that I've had a goal seeking career saying नहीं आज मुझे बस मेटावर्स करना है so या फिर I will only do metaverse, I won't do anything else. It doesn't mean that if I have an opportunity to still go back to an e-commerce world, I wouldn't. Or so it's largely been, what the consumer opportunity or problem that the team is solving, and who is the team is what largely makes a difference to me.
Yeah, that's very interesting to have the ability also to switch based on what we like to do. It's something. I mean, when we are passionate about it, that's definitely what we're driving. Thanks, Kinnari. Sonali, on the contrary, see, you've been on sales career all the way. Is that something you keeps you excited, or is it something that you wanted to choose?
Yeah, hi Chitra. One, it's great to be on this panel with such eminent leaders, and thank you for this opportunity. I would say to answer your question, I say the career chose me because this is not what I had really planned. A quick background, I come from a very conservative Gujarati community where men run small businesses and they're the main breadwinners, right? So, working women in my house was unheard, okay? I was, to be honest, I was completely trained to be a housewife by my mom. When I was doing my education, and after my education, all I said to my dad was, "Dad, give me 3 months to do just one assignment, and then I'll happily marry the partner you choose for me, and that's what's going to be my future." But those 3 months really changed my life completely. I and my dad both saw how much I enjoyed what I was doing, and especially the financial independence bug really caught me, right? In those 3 months, I realized how there is so much potential, there's so much we can do. And now, 22 years plus, there is no looking back. It's been an awesome journey. And did I choose the sales career? Actually, it comes to me inherently because, like I said, I come from that business background. I've seen my dad, my uncle running their business, negotiating every day. And that 3 month assignment that I did, Chitra, was actually to sell the digital cameras back then. Sony had come up with one. And I got an opportunity to sell one to the commissioner of police in Mumbai and to Talati and Pantaki, who are who are the top architects in India today. The way they applied using that piece of technology to solve their business problems was amazing. I was so young, right? I had just started, and I was actually with that commissioner of police. What his use case was that he has to click pictures of the criminals and keep it as a record, right? And that was like a big thing for them, and I was amazed. I'm like, wow, this is what technology does. And that kick to solve a customer problem. Kinnari exactly said that, right? Solving the customer issues or the consumers, fulfilling what their requirements are. was very rewarding, and that's how I started my sales journey, and it just continues with that same excitement even today after so many years, that we are able to solve problems for our customers. That's what excites me in sales.
Sorry, I'll just like to interrupt. Sonali, I can resonate with you because I started my career selling Olympus digital cameras at that point in time. So I think we both were at the same time. You were selling Sony and probably I was selling Olympus.
That's great, Kinnari. That's great. Yes, Chitra.
That's really interesting. I mean, it's more of how the curiosity drives to what we want to do, right? That ability to that the curiosity drives us moving between the fields, and I completely I can relate because I moved from a DevOps role into sales and into a pre-sales role, and this problem-solving thing when the customer gives you the solutions to build. I can relate so much into it. It's something different every day. The challenges you see are different every day. With that, Renu, what do you think about what are the options we have as a non-coding person as a career? Because you've been on several roles, right? You've been on the app development part, and then you've been on the leadership positions. You've been leading program as a program manager, product manager kind, and even now you are running programs to get back women to work and so forth. So, what roles you would put forth for someone who wants to get into the non-coding track?
Hi, first of all, Chitra, thanks for the opportunity. So let me just first summarize what kind of roles am I going to talk about, and then we'll give examples of how I have navigated those kind of roles in my own career. So I will broadly talk about the roles in consulting, as in domain consulting, analysis work, industry kind of work, customer relationship work, and retaining customers, creating methodologies. That's one kind of work. Another is pre-sales, solution architecting, solution design, right? That kind of work. Then you have in testing the work in software life cycle, the work relating to analyzing, designing. You have coding and testing, and then you implement, right? So in this whole cycle, and I will talk about a study from Mercer, future of job roles, you'll see only 33% of IT industry roles or IT roles are coding roles. 67% roles are non-coding roles. So what all you can do in software or product lifecycle, which is non-tech, right? And then, there is so much out there in startups. And so let me begin with my own journey and how I navigated these kind of roles. So I was a computer engineer and very first batch. My, came from a small town where, computer science, people used to, oh, this new branch has started, must be great for women. So my father aspired that I should be an engineer. And I thought, okay, I should be computer engineer. I was in an engineering college in very first batch. And then I did coding and I thought that others were doing better. We always compare. So on one hand, I was very proud that I could crack into engineering college and I'm, in computer science branch. But when it came to choosing a career and first job, and I did have first job offers because there was a huge demand for computer programmers. But I said, look, others are doing better. Maybe I will not do well in this career. That's how I thought at that time. And I thought, okay, if I add an MBA, it will be better. It will give me kind of business orientation and I'm good at that part. So I did that. But to cut the long story short, even though I did MBA, when I was back in the job market, everybody pointed me to IT roles. So I thought, okay, let me do what is being offered because, often you don't get what you want. So I was pushed into IT despite my MBA. So that was my first 5 years doing IT and coding and, entire life cycle. There was no much of IT industry at that time. We were doing IT in manufacturing. And then I went for my MBA in another MBA in US and came back. And that let me talk about the kind of roles I took then, right? I had an MBA from US, though I was an MBA from India and I was not getting an, non-IT role. But when I came back, the first job I took was consulting. And let me tell you the beauty of a role in consulting. It can expose you to the entire life cycle, starting from researching the industry, coming up, knowing the problem statement, proposing a new proposition to the customer, to coming up with potential solutions, and building a team and creating a COE, and always be in the cutting edge of what your customer wants and how to solve business problem, right? And in that process, IT is only a very small segment, and even in IT, there are ready products that you can suggest and implement. So that is what I was doing. It gave me a complete view of what happened, how to solve a customer problem with IT. So if you are looking for, not coding and being into multiple kind of roles, I would say consulting and an extension of that in IT industry, there is so-called consulting happening in pre-sales, right? So you are selling to the customer. Then in solution design phase, you kind of go do a due diligence, propose a solution, and then somebody comes and implements and program manage. So there again, extend to program management. You propose all this, you have to kind of carry the relationship. You can be an account manager, you can be program manager, etc., etc. So that's the consulting pre-sales kind of roles that I have been in. Be it companies like I explained, came back and kept KPMG, then worked in IBM or Capgemini and others. Another kind is that, like I said, in software development lifecycle, everything is not about coding. So you have entire lifecycle. So you look at V model, you say you analyze something, you design, you develop, and you test and implement. So right in that mode, everything you do needs verification, validation. First of all, you need analysis and requirement itself. There people who have business knowledge, like, you may not have business knowledge, you work with somebody, you'll acquire business knowledge, you interact with customers, you'll acquire that process knowledge, apply that process knowledge, have curiosity and instinct to learn business problems and how to solve them, just with common sense, right? That will get you far. And then, so like I said, there's a whole bunch of roles which are non-development. Now look at, analyzing problems, doing the requirements, then, verification at every stage. It does not require coding, but it requires you to look at what was proposed versus what is implemented, and can you, is it validating, right? So let me cite a report from Mercer, 2022 report from Mercer, and it talks about various job roles which are emerging and at high fast track. So you will see, we talk so much about data science and data and business intelligence, etc. So you will see that the actual tech role which involve data science are data science and big data mining, which is only 13%. But look at the non-tech role, which is business intelligence or data analysis, with another equivalent 13%. Then you see data analysis and reporting is another 11%. Then you see RPA analysis, which is robotic process automation analysis, is 11%, 9%. Then you see things like project management, 5%, internet marketing, 7%, e-commerce, web operations, 7%, and all these are non-tech roles, adding up to 67% of all the IT gamut of activities that we are talking about. Just extending a bit more on my own experiences of doing these IT industry leadership roles, which involve a lot of non-tech teams. And there are, in fact, another beauty of IT industries. We convert a lot of non-tech folks by training into tech, or from one tech to another tech. There was a time when, when customers wanted to outsource, they were looking at what to outsource and what will be the easy and fast thing to outsource. And they said testing is the easy thing. And you, like I said, right side of the V, which says validate everything you do. And they said, okay, and a second pair of eyes is useful. So let's outsource that activity. And that's where we set up independent testing. And even today, that concept is true despite the DevOps and the Agile. So when we set up the testing, nobody knew formal testing, and the industry scaled in leaps and bounds. People used to say she'll set up training factory, and she'll convert even security guards into testers. So so there is a lot about training, upskilling, and shadowing people and making them learn. And and that's how we train freshers also. People come with some technology and some learning and some engineering degree, but what they practice in industry is after what they are taught, trained, shadowed, etc. So there is a lot of training that happens. So never be afraid of venturing into new technology or non-tech role. And finally, I would say there is a whole lot out there in product consulting. So you have these products like, in my time, I started with SAP, Oracle, Bahn, and other products. or you financial services industry, if you see, we deal with thousands of product in our product architecture, and all those are non-tech. Somebody has developed them and we are just implementing, configuring, validating them. And those are the roles where beginning to know your, beginning to enhance your domain knowledge plays a great role. So in product related, when we say product career or product owner or product testing, it does not necessarily mean that you are always creating a product or developing a product. There is in product also there is entire life cycle. So in IT industry, you see roles like alliance manager, implementing alliance products, right? So as much of the business in IT industry that is happening using coding and developing something new or enhancing and maintaining it, equivalent or more is happening implementing various alliance partner products.
Correct.
So that's all I have to say in terms of all that you can do in non-tech, and it is 67% of all, entire industry we are talking about. Only 33% is coding.
This is true. Have this open mind to learn. When I graduated from my engineering, and all that we were taught in engineering colleges, different languages, programs, and kind of you get narrowed to thinking that coding is the only thing to do, and you pick up different languages to learn. But when I joined into the workforce, I realized there are so many different things happening. So it's important to have that open mind to learn, and also to be keen and understand what are the different functionalities happening in your own organization. Your own organization could be enough for you to switch lanes and get you into the different careers that you want, that might interest you more than what you're actually doing. So that is very true, Renu. But how important do we actually need to know more of coding? Because Ameeta, I see you a lot of doing in the DevOps and automation front. Also, you are leading the solution architects. But you see coding to be a very relevant thing that is required for the career, or is that a knowledge that is good to possess, or you see that have a role in all the playing a role in our fields as well? What is your thought on that?
So for the longest time, I personally believed, and just I've been listening very intently to what everybody was saying, and for me, coding I felt was my true calling when I started. Okay, I did start my career coding. Okay, it was the revelation came when I attended an interview, and I very proudly stated that I have developed this zip utility, and the interviewer asked me, "What is the end purpose of this zip utility? Where is it going to be used?" Okay, so I was so intent on the functionality I had developed that I had no idea where it fitted in the large picture. Okay, so that really got me thinking, and eventually I realized as I got into several roles in my career, while I started with coding, the initial part of my career, it played a good role, because the next natural progression for me was to work with, in a technical sales kind of a role, where you are now talking to customers about how they can develop better, how they can use automation, to do their development, testing, designing, architecture, all better, and things like that. And then, you start realizing that fundamentals have to be strong. So over a period of time, you ask specifically about coding, right? Coding knowledge is very good if you are going to be working with customers, and if you're going to be working in non-coding technical careers where you're dealing with people that are developing code. If I have to, connect with developers, if I have to talk to them about middleware technologies, if I have to talk to them about the relevance of agile, about DevSecOps and the role that they play, it helps to have the fundamentals strong. However, as I realized, for a long time, I was in the rational software part of the portfolio, which was predominantly dealing with developers. I realized one day that I'm having a very myopic vision. There is a life beyond that as well. There are people who are in operations, there are people who are in networking, there are people who are in infrastructure, right? Who don't possibly have anything to do with coding per se, but those are relevant roles for you to be able to actually have that code in production, right? And then managing it and maintaining it and so on and so forth, right? So I would rephrase that question to say that, whatever, career you are in the technology industry, make sure that your fundamentals are strong because those are non-negotiable. I learned coding in C++ to start with, later graduated to Java, and then somewhere along the line, I'm not doing any more coding. However, if the fundamentals are strong, you understand the best practices of modularity. Today, if I have to tell a customer, break your monolith application into microservices, okay, the best practices of object orientation still hold me in good stead. The best practices of a services oriented architecture, which was, a catchphrase some years ago, still hold me in good stead, right? So fundamentals, I believe, have to be strong because in the kind of, for example, right now I lead this team of solution architects, right? We are advising customers on their digital transformation journeys. Every company today, we're saying, is a software company. Therefore, everyone is having their businesses driven by code. So don't get me wrong, code is important. However, we also, not every company has their own in-house IT teams, right? They need someone to come and tell them, which products to use, how to put together this solution, because there could be multiple, vendors, how to put the best practices, get the best solutions together and stitch together a solution. Today, digital payments have taken off big time. So banks are all looking at how to incorporate UPI, for example. The government has launched so many digital initiatives to bring citizen services, right? It brings a whole plethora of things that we need to put together. Everything that Kinnari said, that Sonali said, that Renu said about what is it that the business wants, what is it that they need to transform, somebody needs to be able to talk to them, right? So to add on to what Renu said, there is a lot of there are a lot of roles that you can do that don't need coding per se. However, you need to have that knowledge of technology if you want to have a tech career, because no customer will take you seriously as a trusted advisor unless you are backed by that fundamental knowledge to be able to advise, because customers can also Google search, right? So if you are going to be that technology advisor, in a non-coding career, you better understand, broadly. If you want to be an enterprise architect, understand the trends in the industry, which way is the industry heading, what is going mattering to this particular, customer in this industry space, what is it that they need to know, right? And those that will build your credibility, and that will make you that much a better technologist, even though you're not doing any coding per se. However, if you choose to be a solution architect that is more specialist in a specific area, then know that technology well. Are you a storage specialist? Are you a security specialist? Advising customers on security, then you better understand that space very well. Okay, so I'm just more facing coding to be technology. So whichever technology you want to be in, even if you don't want to code per se, be on top of everything that is happening in that area. What were the latest trends? If it is security, do you know how security is done in the cloud? We know how it is done in on-prem. If you're working, are you aware of, what are the latest things? How is it going to work in the 5G world? And so on and so forth. Whichever area you pick, make sure you're on top of what is happening there, even if you don't have to be coding per se. That's what I'm saying.
And the key takeaway from what you mentioned, right? We can understand that we're also acting as a bridge between the client and the people who are actually building. So we need to understand what the client wants and also be able to translate it into how your developers or coders are fixing. And it's important to have both this knowledge, the right balance between both the worlds. So
Yeah, no product can be
that's
developed in an ivory tower, right? It has to finally be taken to a customer, and I feel this is a viable career for those of you not looking at, being doing coding or, tied down to a desktop. Then I think technical sales is a viable career where you get to, demonstrate technology, discuss technology, be on top of technology day in and day out, solving the hard business problems for customers, right? And at the same time, having to stay constantly relevant and up to date with technology.
right. Kinnari, you also do something similar, right? You you are building up startups and you bring a lot of technology teams together and also translate what your clients want to do in terms of this. What is your view on what skills we would be requiring? How much of coding skills, how much of soft skills, how much of the domain skills? How do you prioritize that?
Like I said, I run direct to consumer businesses, right? So probably as a product function, I'm sitting in the center wherein we are talking to business, we are talking to marketing, we are talking to MIS or BI teams, we are talking to finance, right? At the same time, large part of us is spent with technology, and the second large is spent with people who try and sell technology to us, right? So I would have, say, an AWS come up with something, or GCP come up with something, or say Microsoft come to my office and say something, right? But unless, like I would reiterate what Ameeta said, right? If your technology base is not there, if your fundamentals are not there, you're not going to be making the right decisions for the company, right? And not, you won't be able to think long term as well. So for example, if I just say, okay, things are changing very fast, right? Take a very simple example of performance marketing, right? Any company who today wants to acquire customers is throwing up digital ads, right? And the digital ad ecosystem is so much measurable that everyone wants to know, how much is that consumer costing me, and what is the best way that I can reach that customer. Should I reach him on his mobile? Should I reach him on his desktop? Is he available on a social media? Is he available on a fintech app? Or is he available, or is she available shopping somewhere, right? So, and what has happened over these years is, because the way technology is advanced, right? People just feel everything in technology is like solvable, like if I just put up a switch in, data will be in, and I should be able to give answers, right? So marketing team comes up back to me and saying, why can't, I mean, it's so easy, you can just tell me where did you see my last ad, right? Now, for that to happen, I have to bring in a whole attribution technology layer, which I will. Then it's a build versus buy decision for anything, that we do. So product, I would say, is nothing but solutioning of where the digital transformation, or where the product should move, or the service should move, and etc. Which I think is not possible if you don't understand how technology works. Now, if you don't understand technology works, there are two things: either you keep reading up, or you've had a base level of technology expertise. Like for example, today I'm solutioning or deciding what Shemaroo's strategy should be in the Web3 ecosystem, right? Now, while I'm here at this position, I didn't learn Web3 in college. I didn't do blockchain in college. Those were texts that keep on coming, right? So, unless you are not reading enough, unless you're not learning enough, I think you will be outdated very soon. So, one thing about technology career is whether you code or you don't code, you have to read. And personally, if I don't read for say 3 days straight, I feel I'm outdated, right? As much as, like, few days back I was reading on quantum theory and audience theory. So I think there was a paper published which says how, why consumers can be equated to, I mean, how can they be looked in the light of quantum theory. So, and I know that if I'm reading this today, 3 months down the line, some of the IT giant is going to knock my door and saying, "Oh wow, haven't you read about this? We have a solution for this," right? So, I think one thing is your fundamentals, like Ameeta said, and secondly is you have to read. There is no running away from keeping yourself updated if you want to climb the ladder. Unless you are happy doing what you're doing, right? It's, but that also, I mean, next year in the appraisal cycle, the management is going to say, what value are you adding, right? So, like my testing team, for example, like, Renu mentioned that they're testing careers, right? So unless a testing team is not upgrading to a Web3 scenario, because we might roll out blockchain as a solution, say blockchain for payment. Tomorrow, if Shemaroo decides, we're saying, okay, we'll accept cryptocurrencies for payment, and if the testing team doesn't even know what a cryptocurrency is, they won't be able to write test cases also. Forget about, testing or imagining anything. So I think it's a never ending learning process if you have to be in technology, and it is challenging with the whole work life balance that the industry keeps on talking about.
Yeah, that is very true. I mean, if I mean testing, the way testing itself has evolved is a lot of learning is required, right? We used to just put a product and test if, for example, a web interface, we just go click all the buttons and see if it used to work. That used to be a tester's job. Now everything is automated. We bring in that. We need the domain knowledge. That is very true. We have to be abreast on what technology and domain we are in. Sonali, how
Uh, uh,
relevant is this for?
just, just one thing I like to add, that the consumers are always smarter and one step ahead, and
Yeah,
that's
that
a
is
challenge every technologist will have to accept and work with.
right. Yeah, sometimes they bring you the problem and you be like, okay, this has gone a step ahead, and we need to update ourselves to hold that conversation with the consumers. That is definitely there. Yeah. And Sonali, how do you find this relevant in a sales career when you are holding conversations with your clients? And over the years, how do you see this has changed, and how much of technology? I mean, you yourself have changed different roles of selling, and you are now updated into cloud and SaaS platforms. So, how much of role has this played in your career?
When I started with IBM in sales, it was more, relationship management. We still have pre-sales supporting us, but that time it was more, managing the other aspects of closing a deal. But today that's not true anymore. Today, if you have to be a successful sales professional, knowing what you're selling, knowing it in and out is absolutely critical and important. You have to earn that tag of a trusted advisor from your customer. And how do you do that? You should be confident, you should know what you're selling, and you should know enough of the technology that you're selling, that how it's going to help your customer. I think Ameeta spoke about it, Kinnari spoke about it, Renu, that articulating that if you implement a particular technology, these are the business outcomes for you, right? You won't be able to do that till you don't understand the tech yourself. Maybe not at the code level, but the core essence of having that technology, implementing that technology, and how it's going to help the customer achieve those business outcomes. Kinnari would, relate very well on when you are working on startups, you implement something, but that has to have a business outcome for sure. Otherwise, there is no point in doing a large, complex project if it's not giving those business outcomes. One thing I want to tell everybody in the audience is we're talking of, a non-coding tech career. I'm seeing, Priyanka, connect with Ameeta on she wanting to be a SA. I have seen multiple, and I've seen many of my colleagues who were my SEs when I was an account manager grow into sales leaders and successful sales leaders today. Okay. So the technology, know-how of technology is that important. So from a coder to pre-sales, solution architecture to sales. I have salespeople in my team today who've come from pre-sales, and they are far more engaging and trusted customer advisors because they talk tech language as well. They just don't talk sales. Customers beyond the point would not want to connect only with sales, right? They need that technical bend in their conversations. So one thing that to all the audience here is that uh, there are multiple options as you grow post your coding. You might start as a coder, but the avenues are really, really multiple of them. Yeah.
Yeah, and it also helps to speed up the conversation with our consumers and customers, right? When you know the technology up, then
Yeah,
you don't have to wait for bringing in somebody, and you can start
exactly.
initiating the conversation. But for someone who is into the coding or someone who's on a break, career break, there are people watching us who are on break, who is looking to move into non-coding careers. So, what would be your advice? Where would they start? How would how can they reach, or what skills they should acquire to move?
Yeah, sure. I think for a non-coding career, two things, right? So one, look out if you're on a break and looking to come back. I think every large organization, IT organization today has programs to get women back into the workforce, right? Like VMware has Tara as a program where we skill women in the technology and give them an opportunity to get back into the workforce within VMware or anywhere else, any other companies as well. So please do look out for all these programs which help you first get skilled, partially technically, and a few soft skills, right? Communication and dealing with customers. Those few soft skills, a combination of those can be a good way to get back into the industry and to the workforce.
I just want to
Um,
add, Chitra.
Para program does help also, but yeah, Renu, over to you because you've been working on this field as well to bring people into the roles, different roles. Please.
Yeah, and let me, quickly just touch upon what is the challenge of, coming back if you have taken a break, right? And Sonali rightly mentioned that, um, use these all these large organizations are running programs, and you mentioned about VM inclusion, Tara, on Women Who Code platform and all that. And many organizations run come back to career and second career and all. But I think what women go through in this phase of even elderly care or child care, or just getting married and changing locations, and trying and that time, while they are doing so much and they're actually gaining experience, people think they're just idling, right? And there's this stigma associated that I have taken a career break, and you go in one or two interviews and you just are not. Many companies are not so, I would say, the you can see the hiring managers are not so well trained to handle such candidates so well, that these people come back with lower morale, saying, I'm not getting a break, it's just not able to come back. So this lowering of so let me give you an example of my own. I had just a 3 months maternity leave way back in 1999 when I had a little kid and I was working in consulting. When I went back to my job in my 4th month, my immediate manager said, "You have 30-day leave, just take half-day leave for 2 months. The kid will be 5-6 months old. You can do that." But his manager told, "Why does she even need to come back?" In consulting industry, we are all about being on the road, being in front of client, billing, and how can she bill if she, is half day working and taking it? So he said he'll create a research role and all. So that's one kind of problem that happens. Second problem, despite my 29 years of experience, one fine day I decide that I must complete this PhD and I take 6 months break. When I'm trying to get back, some are respectfully treating me, but some are asking questions, very awkward questions. Why couldn't your company give you a leave? Why do you choose to come out? Why can't you go back to the same? So awkwardness of questions, right? And despite all the great that we talk about bringing women back to workforce, this is the core problem women face. So building their confidence and allowing them to come back, and giving them confidence to handle awkward situations when they are trying to come back to work itself is a learning. So on the background of VM inclusion, Tara, that you mentioned, and we've been very inspired with that, with VMware being founder sponsor of Women Who Code in India. We started the chapter in Hyderabad, Women Who Code Hyderabad, and last year we started Rise for Reboot, Invest, Scale, and Empower Yourself. And we thought, okay, even if we could bring back one or two women back to workforce, a great deal. But we did training for about 50 women, and we could graduate 23 of them, because we have a stringent criteria of 75% attendance and 75% score in what you learn. And all those 23 got placed. And we started out with tracks like testing, Java, Hadoop, and all, but our experience was that because of low confidence, the completion rate in Java and Hadoop was low. This year, we thought, let us add one more track, and we added data science. And you won't believe that actually people can do Python with no coding background also. And I was inspired with that, having had zero coding experience in 20 years. Last year, I could complete my master's in AI/ML from IIIT Bangalore. So that inspired me to add this data science track, and we could graduate some 15 women, and they are up for finding jobs, and 5 of them have already found jobs. So, I mean, point I'm making is that, upskilling yourself in technology, plus having that confidence to handle situations, including awkward job interview situations, can get you there.
Thanks a lot, Renu. I think we have to appreciate. I mean, this is something we put aside as a passionate thing apart from work, and it's like working for a cause, and it's really commendable that we see women getting back to work, and thanks a lot for hitting that. And then, Ameeta, do you also see how's the ratio of women in these non-coding roles, or when you yourself, when you were rising up in the career, did you face any challenges? How did you overcome, and what do you have to tell us, women in these roles?
So thanks for the question, and it's a very relevant question because as one progresses in your career and try doing different things, right? There are many times when you come out of your comfort zone, okay, and there will be a lot of voices that will tell you you can't do this, or it's too risky, don't go and try that. Be where you are because you've already established yourself here. The main thing that I always tell people that I mentor is be very careful. Where are these voices coming from? Are they coming from your own head, or is it coming from an external source? So that is very important because if it's coming from your own head, then build your own confidence and be confident enough to raise your hand to say that I want to take that next job, right? And all of us, I think, as leaders, have got out of that rut multiple times in our career because we dare to go and say, I'll try and do this different thing and put our hand up for the job, right? And you may fail, but you learn something from it, right? However, and I don't want to generalize by saying that there is no bias. Renu described how it can be very subtle, in questions that are asked to you and things like that. That again, you have to, each one of us has to build that confidence to be able to speak up, and have a voice. Very, very important. Don't let somebody else tell you what you can or cannot do. Whatever you have done in your career is your choice. It's a conscious choice. If you took a career break, it was your choice. Okay. If you're choosing now to come back, it's a choice. And if you decided to be out of the workforce for some time, it is a choice. That which means that you have to be comfortable within, the boundaries that you set for yourself, depending on which, stage of your life you are in. Okay. And be comfortable within those boundaries. Okay. If you cannot then aspire for some role that requires you to travel constantly when you have a young kid at home, then be comfortable that you will not be able to do that. Okay. And find something that you will be able to do. That's the best advice that I have been given, that I give to people, because if we try to be good at everything, I think Indra Nooyi said, right, women can have it all, right? But somebody also said nicely, it's not necessary that you want to have it all at the same time. If constantly 24/7, I want my work-life balance to be perfect, it won't happen. There are days when my job needs me to be out on the road meeting customers 5 days a week. But weekends am I back home, then I need to look holistically at my life and say that this is work-life balance for me. As long as I have a balance between, all the things I like to do, my interests, my hobbies, my life, my personal life, professional life, career advancement, etc. Right? So back to that question on the challenges you face. Those challenges that you face, you have to look at it from the framework of where you are, in your life stage. What is it you're comfortable doing? What is it that is hitting those boundaries that you cannot do right now? And then be comfortable with your choices and do it very well. Whatever you do very well, because everything else is perception based. Build your brand, build your credibility, be very good at whatever you're doing, be the go-to person for whatever you're doing. You will automatically see that all those challenges will fade away.
Thank you, Amita. That's very inspiring to hear. We are almost on top of the hour. I'll open up the forum for any last minute thoughts that you have for our women who are listening to excel in non-coding career.
I was just add to what Amita said. Be confident, make your choice, and don't be afraid to ask for help, be it in office or at home. Right? When you take that support wholeheartedly, don't feel conscious. Oh, how can I ask my children, or how can I have that frank conversation with my children that okay, I cannot be here in this week. Their exam times, important days at school, at colleges. It's okay to have that open channel. Get your, if that's an option, get parents or in-laws involved in helping you support and create that ecosystem. That goes a long way when you have built that ecosystem to help you excel or reach your goals. So that's critical according to me.
Yeah, I want to add a closing thought that always have a, second career. What I mean is something which is your hobby that you may want to pursue and make a career out of it. Or, many women like teaching and research career as well, having a PhD, like, I mentioned, I have a doctorate. And it doesn't happen overnight. So plan for it with a bit more long term. And things like, your regular reading, active writing, blogging, even contributing in conferences, writing book or whatever, like these are the things which I believe have helped me in my career in a long term. So build over these over long term.
I think, most of us have been asked to think outside the box. But I think the day you think that there is no box is where you start from, right? And as women, I think the larger onus rests upon us as senior leaders to bring in that level of comfort, to bring in, raise children, be it a male child or a female child, without the box thought. I mean, it starts with the thought that there is a divide. And personally, I have never believed in the divide right from when I was a child, right? So I have actually bought sanitary napkins and asked the shopkeeper not to wrap it in the newspaper. I think that's the day I kind of freed myself up from this device and saying there's nothing shy to be a woman, and I'm equal to anybody it is, and I have my own battles to fight. I think males also have their own battles to fight. So that I think the more and more we talk about, women, I think that's where the social divide starts. I mean, senior leaders or all the people who are watching, I think it starts from the time when you think there's a divide.
Thanks, Kinnari. This was a great session, and I already see Vidya up asking us to push to the next. Vidya, over to you.
Hey, thank you, Chaitra. It was a very insightful discussion, and I think participants or who are not sure about what options we have in the industry other than the traditional coding testing, which used to be the typical norm earlier. I think it was an eye opener for me to know the percentage what was given, like the majority of the job role comes from non-coding, because it's very important for any product life cycle or an organization having different roles, different responsibilities to run an organization or to deliver a product. So that was very insightful. And for me, the key takeaway was the journey what our panelists had in their career, right? And what led to where they are today, and how to shift from one technology or to other. And the major thing for me is to staying relevant, what everybody said, irrespective of whether you're in a coding or a non-coding. So upskilling in technology and your attitude to learn new things, to face new challenges, goes a long way. With this, I think I would like to thank all our panelists for this wonderful discussion, and Chitra for moderating this discussion so seamlessly, and all our participants for all questions, comments, and patiently listening to this conversation. Thank you, one and all.
Thank you, Chitra.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Thank you,
you. Yeah.
Chitra.
Have
Thank
a
you,
good day.
everyone.
Bye.